What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Munich Edge of War movie breakdown and spoiler review. Now, I've been looking forward to this movie for a while, as I thought George Mackay, who plays Hugh, was great in 1917. The movie is based on the same novel of the same name by Robert Harris and focuses on a pivotal point in the prelude to World War II. Now, Germany had embarked on a campaign of getting what Hitler perceived as their historical lands back, and was eager to take what is known as a Sudetenland, I've probably butchered that name, which had 3 million Germans in it, and the British government, more specifically Neville Chamberlain, had embarked on a policy of appeasement in trying to avoid war at all costs, as World War I was still fresh on everyone's minds. Now, Germany had lost a lot of land due to the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. Hitler had built his support on building Germany back after capitalizing and blaming Germany's position and war loss on perceived traitors. Of course, he had other scapegoats too, but his policy of Lebensraum was incredibly important. History has not been kind to this view of appeasement and policy, as Hitler would break his word that he had no desire to invade anywhere else, when he would just continue on a few years later, leading to World War II. Now, the movie follows Hugh Legat, who works with Number 10 as an advisor to the Prime Minister. Early in his life, he was best friends with Paul, a German he knew at Oxford. Now, this part was largely fiction, as Paul is, well, not exactly a real-life figure, but reportedly loosely based on the diplomat Adam von Trott zu Solz, who was involved in the infamous Operation Valkyrie later in the war. The pair fell out over Paul being a supporter of Hitler and thinking that the anti-Jewish part of the Nazi Party could be defeated and Hitler will bring back Germany to being the powerhouse it once was pre-World War I. However, this was fruitless, as we know, well, they just fell out before the election and the friends never spoke again. Now, it's important to know that, well, people were really angry after World War I, as they thought that they were winning the war, and so it came as somewhat of a shock. If you're interested in this period of history, I would really recommend checking out Dan Carlin's History podcast. However, Paul would go on to be part of an anti-Hitler resistance, realizing that he's a thug and wants to take over all of Europe, and was a racist. He and others need to convince the German army that Hitler would cause an all-out war and would not stop at the annexation of the Sudetenland, and his Lebensraum, or living space plan, will bring down the country again. He got his hands on a document that would prove these intentions, and is based in real life, with people trying to petition the British government that he wouldn't stop. Hugh is loosely based on the friend of Salt, A.L. Rouse, and the friendship between the two here was largely kind of real fiction for the novel. The German did meet Chamberlain in real life, but before the Munich talks, and most of this movie was artistic license. Now, Hugh works in the Foreign Office, and once Paul gets the document, he is eager to get into the peace talks so he can hand it over to his friend, or former friend Hugh, so the British government see that this appeasement will not work. He engineers it so Hugh is put on the team sent to Munich from the UK, and Paul is under suspicion from a childhood friend who works in the Führer escort team, as Paul heads to Munich and his stuff is looked through. Instantly they head to the talks, and Hitler wants to have one dignitary in there, and Paul finds Hugh to get the document to him. Now, Chamberlain seems naive by the talks, and Paul has got the eye of the Führer, who seemingly both dislikes him and likes him at the same time, and is a bit kind of insecure about him having gone to Oxford, as Hitler famously did not get into art school. But the friends reunite under the watchful eye of Paul's childhood friend, and they debate how to stop the war, with Hugh adamant that the talks can work, and Paul gives him the document and shows him why he has changed his mind, as Paul's ex was Jewish and was assaulted and sent to a camp, which was absolutely awful. Now, the talks don't progress, as Paul then kind of tries to change tactic and shoot Hitler, which he stops short of later in the movie, and he was attacked by the guard as they look for the document. But luckily later we learn how his secretary was a secret agent sent to help him and managed to get the document out before it could be found by anyone else. Now, Paul is also under suspicion as well, and presumably would later work on Operation Valkyrie to kill Hitler, which failed just like his real-life counterpart. They would go their separate ways, but war would break out just a year or two later, and Hitler invaded Poland, leading to a all-out war due to the UK forming an alliance with France and Poland, which led to, well, what happened all those years ago. Overall, I thought this was a solid movie, with the performances being real and Jeremy Irons being a standout as Chamberlain and someone so eager to avoid war once again. It's an interesting take on this leader, as Churchill was seen as the saviour swooping in and saving the country. Some have said that they don't like the fact that this is portraying Chamberlain in a better light, but in the UK the whole idea of Churchill is a bit controversial at the moment, and history does sometimes, well, you look back on history in different ways, so I'll leave it up to you to make up your mind on was he doing the right thing or not. Today's culture tries to avoid war even if bad things happen, which we've seen throughout, and it's very apt with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. It was refreshing to see a different version of this leader brought to life by Jeremy Irons, even if he did seem a bit bumbling and not understanding just how maniacal Hitler actually was. But overall, it was a decent movie and I had a great time watching it. I would like to see the other books by Harris taken, as they have some sort of alternative history going on as well, and I would be curious to see if, well, maybe we've got a sequel, but probably not. It seemed like a pretty close shut case here, with Hugh going on to join the RAF later, and perhaps, but of course the Battle of Britain will come, which would be a bad time to be in the RAF. But that is it for this video. Please drop a like down below, do subscribe with notifications on, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.